This KZUM podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you. Help KZUM continue to grow by donating online at kzum.org. And don't forget to follow us at twitter.com/KZUM Radio.
I'm Nick Hernandez, and you're listening to Community Matters on KZUM. Joining me today from the John Templeton Foundation is Barnaby Marsh. Welcome, Barnaby.
Hello, Nick. It's great to be with you.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. I've been smitten by positive psychology for many years, and I've noticed that the John Templeton Foundation seems to be the big funder in developing the field, advancing the science. And tell us about this part of the John Templeton Foundation and the work that you do there.
Sure. Well, one of the things I work on is trying to get the funding to the people who have imaginative ideas. And one of the founders of positive psychology is Marty Seligman, who's at the University of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. And Marty realized that psychologists were focusing a lot on the problems that people have and not so much on what makes life better.
Yeah.
And so one of the things he did early on was to do research on that and realized that some of the types of tasks that people use to address issues that they have could also be turned around to look at the sort of positive aspects of life. And so when we saw that, we decided this is something that might be good to fund so it could expand a bit more. And in the last few years, boy, it's really taken off.
Yeah. So were you the person that discovered Marty Seligman for the Templeton Foundation, or what was that? How did that happen?
No, that was a long time ago, long before I came, probably about 15 years ago. But there were a series of prizes, and Sir John Templeton, who was the person who set up this Templeton Foundation, thought that prizes were a great philanthropy mechanism to recognize what works and try to bring attention to what works in philanthropy.
Beautiful. Was John Templeton, did you have a chance to meet him?
Oh, yes, many times. And he was one of the most positive people I've ever met. Wherever there was a problem, he always saw possibilities. And that was really a life-changing experience to be able to meet him and find someone who's so positive.
Amazing. One thing I've been curious about, it seems like as far as the potential for creating positive change in society, the private foundation seems to be one of the institutions with the most ability to create positive change. And in that, you're sort of developing the field of positive change. I noticed that you're the director of a philanthropic leadership network, and I just am so curious to see how does this field of positive psychology, how can it be applied internal to the development of a private foundation itself? So I don't know, to put it crudely, like drinking your own Kool-Aid, if that's not too big of a stretch. No. And then in the realm of philanthropy.
It's a great question, Nick. Thanks for asking it. The part of the idea behind the Philanthropic Leadership Network is not that we have ideas that other people don't have. Mm-hmm. It's more along the lines of that in the years traveling around and meeting other philanthropists and philanthropy organizations, we were seeing that there was a lot of the same ideas, people who wanted to improve, the state of things, but there's very little coordination. Sort of each foundation and each high net worth individual sort of takes things on by themselves. Mm-hmm. In a way that's good because it means that there's a whole diversity of different approaches.
Yeah.
But the thing that concerned me was the amount of time that people spent sort of doing, duplicating the same research and sometimes learning the same mistakes. And so I thought, well, if we try to create sort of a round table where people who are working on a common challenge can share their experiences, that could make the learning a lot faster, and it could help people a lot more and help people a lot faster.
Yeah, that's one of those dynamics of foundations, just that ability to convene seems to be one of the predominant benefits of the existence of private foundations. And on the Well, I'm going to jump into strengths a little bit right here. I think personally, one of the reasons this goes back as an interest in the field of philanthropy for me since grad school down at the University of Texas at Austin, and the just in the Gallup Strengths Finder, one of my strengths is connectedness, and another one on that is maximizer. So it seems like the private foundation is the embodiment of that pursuit of excellence plus the ability to connect people. So I think
Yeah, interesting. Because I thought, I'm in the private foundation space,
Yeah.
Nick, but then also I think there's a lot of connectivity to happen also in the sort of public charity area, and also in community centers, and more broadly in the society. And especially in our day and age, the possibility for linkage is so much greater than it was even maybe 25 or 30 years ago. So it's a really exciting time to be active and to help to draw more people into the prospects of how we can learn to be better helpers of others.
It's amazing.
Help ourselves. I mean, part of it's also we learn as well through these processes. I've learned a lot from meeting with people who, have struggled with issues and have overcome them. That's really helped me as a person.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear people's stories. It kind of seems like there's three classes of people that are doing great work. There's those that just somehow saw the light and they just started going towards it. Some people felt the heat, and then some people just kind of have this curiosity, and they just kind of keep doing things, and then they do amazing things.
I think that's right. I think that's really right. You're onto something. And also bringing those types of people together to share experiences and to learn from each other really is a very valuable thing. And I hope that as the world gets more interconnected, that we can see this as more and more of the feature of being a good citizen.
Yes, it's just looking at the inside, that sort of like the development from the inside out, and then working on the social institutions to positively affect people from the outside in. I was going
to say another thing that we've experimented with early on at the Templeton Foundation, and this is an idea that Sir John came up with, was to help fund at a very modest level. I mean, these are prizes of maybe $100 or $200. Contests for students who could pick any sort of character virtue or strength that they wanted, and to just write about that and reflect on it. So there are no answers or anything like that expected, but the whole idea was just to give time for reflection on something that's been important, to you in the development of your life. And that really created a lot of discussion. It created discussion amongst students. It created discussion amongst teachers. And even, parents and grandparents and family were drawn into the discussion about topics such as the importance of gratitude, honesty, perseverance, recognition of others, and so forth. And the amount of interest in that was really surprising. There were essay contests across the country led by teachers, and I think there's a real hunger for more of this type of exploration in our society.
All right.
And overseas too.
Yeah, it seems to be universal that sort of an appreciation for that, developing what's on the inside. And I'd like to, if you're tuning in here, you're listening to Community Matters on KZUM. I'm your host, Nick Hernandez. My guest today is Barnaby Marsh from the John Templeton Foundation. We've been talking about the work of the Templeton Foundation in funding the field of positive psychology and well-being research. And now we'll kind of segue into a little bit of a deeper focus on strengths. And we'll talk for a moment about our own strengths. If you'd like to follow along to this conversation that happens every Monday, feel free to do the Strengths Finder yourself. You can find this at viame.org. That the VIA stands for Values in Action, and so the me is about you. And so viame.org, It's a several takes about half an hour or so, and it gives you a set of, it kind of cross-references well-being with different character strengths. So the idea is if you focus on your top character strengths and connecting those strengths to the actions that you take and how you work, how you play, and how you give back, you will, that's kind of the stairway to well-being for each person. It's like your personal DNA of your happiness path through life. I'll jump in and I'll reveal my top character strengths. Mine are appreciation of beauty and excellence, love, gratitude, curiosity, and humor and playfulness. Barnaby, would you like to share some of yours too?
Yeah, like I suppose like patience and perseverance have been really important to me, but also feeding curiosity and being grateful, gratitude and generosity have also been really important. And exploring, I think we both mentioned gratitude as one of our what we think is a leading strength. And there's really a lot, I think, to be explored there. Through giving to others, we really help to express who we are and help to develop who we really are. And it benefits us in so many ways to live a spirit of gratitude. Would you agree?
Oh, completely. I've seen some amazing work here in Lincoln. There was one professor that did a study on early onset generativity, so college students mentoring youth, and they found that this act of mentoring increased the social responsibility of the mentors, and it's astonishing to see the amazing places where the graduates of this mentoring program wind up in. And that, to me, that's really that dynamic between sort of looking back and appreciating the things that have benefited us and then turning that around into generosity ourselves towards others. And
sometimes when we give, I think we find that we have even more to give. And that was certainly the case for one of the, qualities that you were talking about that you found, which is exploring the nature of human love. It seems sometimes that the more love you give, the more you have left, and the more there is to share. And that's amazing to think about that.
Yeah, I'm going to share a little bit with our audience. Myself, I've been in recovery from alcoholism for a little over 6 years now. And I kind of see it as that dynamic that we spoke of as the flip side of addiction, where once I started drinking, then I wanted more to drink. So right. I think everybody, could enjoy alcohol, but they don't necessarily want it and crave it the way that an alcoholic does.
And for a lot of things, more isn't necessarily better.
Yeah.
In a lot of areas of life, there's this idea, and it's a false idea, that more if something is better.
Yeah.
And not always. Sometimes it's not, not having the need for too much to begin with. And that's in a lot of areas, including, sort of material goods, and other things that are not so easily, where it's inexhaustible. If you start getting on a treadmill when you want more and more and more of something, whether it's food or drink or material belongings.
I've heard it put as a hedonic treadmill, where once you get off this treadmill of pleasure, you're not really anywhere else. And there's a eudaimonic staircase, and that when you get off the eudaimonic staircase, you're actually on a different floor of or level of life.
You might realize that some of the things that some of the things that we want when we're on that sort of hedonic treadmill, once you get off of it, you realize you didn't really need them at all. And that's very empowering. It's very liberating.
Yeah.
And
I think that love, like what you were mentioning, I think that's the beautiful one, where that ability to give and receive love. It's like once we start that, it's like there's more to give. So I see that as like the positive dynamic of addiction, except it's like, once you start, you want to love more. And it's that upward spiral instead of a downward spiral.
And I think for the listeners out there, really, I encourage you all to just try it today, And I know everyone practices from time to time, but even just doing small things during your day, thanking a coworker, or realizing appreciation for something that you never felt gratitude for, it doesn't so much only benefit the others around you, but I think it benefits also one's own soul. And that's something that you wonder why this isn't built more into, what we learn when we go to school and so forth, because it's really amazing.
Yeah, it's profound. I've seen some of the work of the Templeton Foundation, and it looked like gratitude is a particularly sizable area of research that you guys are funding now. Positive neuroscience, from the perspective of what it's like to be in the grant making side of a foundation. What are you most excited about among these fields that you're funding?
Yeah, I mean, it's really, I with the work in other areas before I was at the foundation, business areas. And I thought that working to give grants and basically to give money away would be something that would be easy to do. And boy, was I wrong. It's really hard. It's really, really hard. And so what we look to do is to fund people who are pioneers, who have ideas that they'd like to test using methods of science, so that some of these topics that are, centrally important and have even been parts of, cultures and religions for thousands of years, can begin to have more of an objective and sort of scientific dimension to them, so that we can test them. But it's not easy to test things, in a scientific way, such as love and gratitude and generosity and forgiveness. And some people even say that it can't be tested at all. But I believe there are pioneers out there, people who are trying to discover new dimensions of these types of realities. And those are the people that I look for. And, it's very gratifying work, Nick, but it's not easy. There aren't, it's not everywhere that you find institutes that might study, love or generosity. And sometimes, the best work is just out in the world, people practicing these qualities and studying how they can be practiced most effectively.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, let's share a little bit about some of the websites, if there's some out there that you'd like to direct people to find out more about the work of the Templeton Foundation.
Sure. Well, first off, let me say that it is not, it's not really about the Templeton Foundation. I think that the Templeton Foundation has a role to play, but with many others, with other funders and with other foundations and with individuals who are enterprising to help to try to make the world better. So I want to start off with one example that we haven't funded, but I admire it a lot, and that is the Giving Tuesday project, which some people who are listeners may have heard of. It's really taken off in the last year and a half since it's launched, with dozens and dozens of foundations and, even the White House involved, and many tens of thousands of people who have focused new ways to give. And this is a reaction really to, especially around the holidays, the concentration on buying things for gifts, and there's a focus on the giving part of that and how we can be more generous and how we can give more. So Giving Tuesday, I encourage listeners to look it up.
Giving Tuesdays.
Another website that the foundation has focused, area that it's focused on, is the Center for Research on Unlimited Love. And that's it's a love institute that focuses on different types of love, whether it's love between parents and children, or between friends, or between spouses, or any of the other wonderful ways that human love helps to make the world a better place. And that is it's an incredible topic, because you think that entire monuments have been built just because of love, and we think there's a huge potential for love in the world, and that if it is shared, it grows. So that's another thing that they could look up for listeners who are on the air. And then I guess finally, as a third one, the positive psychology work has really been a benefit, I think, to many people. And that you can just type in positive psychology, and a range of different sites come up. And that's really what the Templeton Foundation is interested in, is doing our small part to help there be a broader discussion, and hopefully there'll be many different types of websites and many different types of discussions happening. Because you want to reach everybody, and one size doesn't fit all. And so the more the more foundations and individuals can have generate different perspectives and different types of solutions, that's really part of a sort of healthy marketplace of ideas. So I think that's the perspective that I would have, just to encourage each person, each individual, to make a contribution in their own way.
Nice. Now, what is what's on the horizon in the world of well-being research and positive psychology?
Certainly we're trying to do what we can to see if there can be sort of a neuroscientific underpinning of these explorations, but that's been hard to do because things like consciousness and well-being are very hard to study. In fact, even in medicine, if you ask a physician, well, what does it mean to be well? What does well-being mean?
Mm-hmm.
There isn't really a definition. There's lots of definitions of ways of being sick, but it's hard to get a definition of what it means to be well and healthy and maximally healthy.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And that's the puzzle. You think, well, these physicians are, everyone's focusing on health, but when you try to outline what it is, it's really imprecise and tricky. So I think that would be really exciting if we could develop different types of ways of thinking about wellness and health. Build upon that.
Yeah, we have a real go get 'em local health foundation, and their mission is for Lincoln to be the healthiest community in the U.S. And they want to explore the question, what does it mean to be healthy?
That's great. And it's a bit mind-boggling to think that some of these such central ideas seem to be in an early stage of exploration, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's really nice to see approaches kind of from the philosophical side on developing concepts, and then on the scientific side to see the research being done and to see that resonance between the two perspectives on scholarly inquiry in these areas that get to the heart of the human experience.
There's a lot of evidence also that there's a good link between healthy mind and healthy body too, which for many years people, I think, didn't really believe, but the evidence is now being stronger and stronger that your outlook really does affect how you feel, and that affects the body too.
I teach ballroom dance. That's my job, so I work on the body that way, and then this show is the way I provide an opportunity to exercise their minds.
Well, that's amazing that you can do both. That's really nice. I'm sure that what you learn in one area spills over to the other as well.
Yeah, this resonance loop here for Lincoln, Nebraska is what I try to keep the upward spiral between this radio show, and I do a meetup group for people here in Lincoln at a local coffee shop once a week, where we talk about how we can be intentional about taking our strengths into our work, our play, and our giving. And we've got a well-being conference coming up this fall, and I don't have funding for it, and I won't ask you for funding for it. But if you're interested in coming to this conference this fall on November 8th, we're going to do a 15-year celebration since the first Positive Psychology Summit, and you are more than welcome to be there. And if you make it here, you can talk about what's happening from the philanthropic angle on positive psychology.
Well, thank you, Nick. That's a very nice invitation. And I'll look into it as well, because we are actually always looking for things that we can help support. But I do appreciate the invitation in any case.
Yeah. Well, you've been listening to Community Matters on KZUM. I've been joined today by Barnaby Marsh from the John Templeton Foundation. And maybe an ending note is there a working definition of positive psychology that you are drawn to the most? Or so what is happiness for this final thing?
I think happiness really is the freedom to live out your dreams and to try new things and to be curious and really for the spirit to soar through the empowerment that creates. And it's inside each person. It really is. And I think the more we can stretch in those directions, sort of the healthier we are as individuals and also the society.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being my guest, and look forward to having you again on the show in the future.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.